Hi, I'm Jacob. I'm here to share my testimony with you today. To say this first off, I never had a relationship with God whenever growing up. I never really went to church. I knew the stories, Moses, Adam and Eve, all the basic stuff. I never knew him. I never knew to. I could pray to him. Um, and in growing up, I mainly going into college. Started to struggle a whole lot with sexual impurity. It pretty much made it harder for me to actually uh, give myself to anyone, much less God, like He asks to give us our heart, which we have. I thought I had nothing else to give, and honestly, I was scared to try. I was scared to actually make that happen. I'm a bit of a nerd, so one of the things I would do is I would read the Bible and I would kind of go through and see all these things that God was, learning about Him like a historical figure, like you might with a historical figure, but I would never actually want to pursue a relationship with him because I was so nervous to make that happen. I thought that I wasn't able to. I physically just couldn't because of me. I never could. I never actually found a church all that time, and my relationships were pretty much ruined because sexual impurity had kind of ruined those things because I made such a priority in my life that it was almost like I was driven by a motor to do all these things. Uh, and I wanted to pursue him, but I couldn't. Remember once I tried going on a mission trip to make things better, maybe. And towards the end, I remember this one day. It was the first time that I ever really felt him tell me to do anything, but I felt him calling me to go read the Book of Judges. And so I went through and I saw that one of the things that was the recurring theme throughout was the fact that they messed up, they turned away, but when they came back, God was still there, and repeatedly that would always happen. And I got to the story of Samson, and I got to the part where he had brought down the temple walls or temple pillars, and killed everyone inside, including him. And in my Bible that I was reading, I had little footnotes at the bottom, and the footnote was basically saying that God isn't uh, choose us. He doesn't judge us or call us based off our past. It's off our current choice to choose Him. And I remember in that instant, it was like I heard it was like a voice in my heart just telling me that my sins are forgiven. And I felt this like washing over me, like that ice in my heart and in my head instantly melt away and like break apart like a polar ice cap. Uh, and I remember I was sitting in a bus when this happened, and I was trying so hard to keep it together. Like I was on the verge of crying, which I never really do, but I was like just trying to just keep it to myself because I had no one to really tell us about because no one would really understand what just happened to me. But after that, I found it easier for relationships with people. It's easier to give my heart to him. Um, uh, but I still had issues though. I promised God, I was like, I'm never going back to where I was. Gonna, I'm never doing anything until marriage. That's my big thing. And I promised that. I said that, and I made sure I kept it until next semester when I went right back into sexual impurity. And that's when things, and I thought that my salvation, that was my one chance. I had it and I lost it. There's no going back. That was my one chance, and I messed it up. And so I never really found a church. I never really went through all this. I never, yeah, I found some courage to pursue God finally. Uh, but I was all by myself still. It wasn't until I found a church that I could talk to about this stuff, and who they actually encouraged me to, not only be there, but to not judge myself for these things, to let go of these things and give it to God. And after a while, I finally managed to. And finally, I felt God give me the strength to cut off these people who enabled this part of me in my life, who encouraged these things, who celebrated these things in my life. And, finally, looking to now, as I've continued to pursue Him and cut off these things that I know invite or open that door into this sin and any other sin that may try to enter into my life, I found that I have so much more peace in my life now, even though nowadays I have so much more pressure on me from just in life and the roles I've taken up that older me would have evaporated under all the pressure. is that now I'm living life. I mean, there's things that are, of course, going on, but I found so much more peace and wisdom through him. I found actual purpose in him, whereas before these my problem with sexual impurity would was so prioritized that it would ruin my relationships with other people. That would taint my platonic relationships with other people, with friends, with family. Is that with how they saw me, how I saw myself as as a damaged good, is that now through Christ I actually see myself as something more. I found purpose through Him and what I can do for this world and His kingdom. Um, and all in all, there's so much more peace involved in this. There's so much more steadfastness I found in my life and strength that's not mine at all. That all these things that I have were not mine at all. I had nothing to do with this. All I did was choosing to follow Him and go where He told me to go.